And saying that, I thought that this was going to be a 3-piece, but it's probably going to be a 4-piece. Okay, but back anyway to what I was explaining about the Kirby story. Okay. And sorry I haven't been moving around the camera much. I just wanted you to get a good collection of all my characters. And maybe I'll kind of pan around on this particular take. But anyway. Okay. And King Dedede in the story is using this group, the Global Sedition, to like crack down on his political enemies, which happen to know at the time that he's up to no good, that he's been ascertaining a vast amount of weapons and mass destruction from various forces like enemy and stuff like that, who happen to be more like cosmic villains rather than just standard villains. And these weapons that he's using are of cosmic proportions, because instead of just destroying whole countries or whole continents, they could destroy like whole worlds or even universes in the Kirby story, because generally that's how, you know, even the video games of Kirby are. You know, he's got to save the universe from like a big monster or a big alien or a big evil cosmic or something like that, and that's basically what the story is, where he's getting the weapons from there. And they really don't know it at the time, but there's some dirty dealings going on there with the Cosmics too, and King Dedede, almost like what you saw on the Kirby TV show between Enemy, Nightmare Enterprises, and King Dedede. Okay, so that's basically what's going on in the story. And then there's like other good guys too who come out, because, well, let's continue on with the bad guys. And let me zoom in on these guys while I'm telling you these little figures here, because it has some relevance as to what I'm going to say. And there's also another bad guy group that's kind of a wacky group too. And it's called the 89 Guerrillas. They're not pronounced gorillas, they're pronounced guerrillas. And the reason why they're called that way is because there was this guy on this movie, I believe it was a Total Recall. The guy who like directed it, his director's commentary on that video, he called the rebels in that movie guerrillas. And the reason why they're called guerrillas in the Kirby story, these characters, these bad guys, is because they really do have gorillas working for them, actual animals, not the soldiers working for them, as I guess like guerrilla soldiers or something. Just kind of a wacky thing there, but they're more wacky bad guys too. But what they are is that they're ex-World War II soldiers gone mercenary. Now, how they get into Dreamland, I guess, is yours and my guess, because I mean, it really doesn't explain that, not every detail, because I don't figure why I have to explain it, because Dreamland, anybody and everybody goes to Dreamland, because I mean, we all go to sleep, we all dream and stuff like that. So I was thinking, why can't they enter Dreamland somehow then too? You know, any creature that could dream could enter Dreamland then. And they started like becoming mercenaries there, and somehow they stayed in Dreamland, almost like staying in their dreams. But they actually like brought their bodies into their realm too, like Kirby's and King Dedede's, and they stayed there and they set up shop as mercenaries. And some of these ex-World War II like soldiers, and I hope this don't offend a lot of people, or like historical figures of World War II, like Rommel, who was he was a German general. And then there's also too I forget his name, but he was the American, I think he was American Marine who lifted the flag on Iwo Jima. He was the guy who was like I believe he was like a Native American guy. And then there was also like the other guy too, what was his name? Brigadier General Theodore Roosevelt or something like that, who was in the Battle of D-Day. He's also like one of the head generals. And the Japanese commander on the Pacific Theater who like fought in the islands of Iwo Jima, he's also one of the main CEOs of the 89 Guerrillas. And it's basically a band of a few hundred, like probably more like a few thousand soldiers from World War II, along with 89 guerrillas, which is their like elite units, or at least they claim that they're their elite units. And there's a lot of comedy kind of involved with that. But anyway, there's some bad guys, but they're more kind of like minor bad guys or supporting bad guys. And on to the good guys, though. We have like Kirby, which Kirby is supposed to be like the knight of the story, the knight kind of in shining armor type character. And you don't see that necessarily coming from Kirby. You see more as a kind of a clumsy or even kind of cute little character in the TV show. But I wanted to give him a more kind of sinister, I want to say almost adult edge in the story, where it was more like he acted more like a grown-up and he had more speaking parts than he does in the video games and in the stories, like the TV shows. Because in the TV shows, he doesn't really speak that much, he just makes some noises. And in the video games, he may say like one or two real simple words like hello, bye-bye, and watch out and stuff like that, but he don't really say like a lot of complex lines. But in the Kirby story, he has a lot much more dialogue than that. And some other good guys in there is like Max, and Max is basically the default avatar from Animal Crossing that you play as. He tends to be in the story rather than like Kirby, who's like the shining knight. He tends to be the character who's kind of like I want to say almost like foobard, which I'll just let you figure out what that means. And he tends to also be kind of like the character who's kind of like gritty and tough, and maybe even a little bit like crazy at times. And he's the type of character that's basically kind of like looking for something in life, because in a lot of ways I guess he's almost like lost his faith in everything, you know, in society and in himself and his abilities and what he believed in and stuff. And because basically in the story, his story is kind of like Billy's from Resident Evil 0, is that he was serving King Dedede at a time, then got accused of war crimes he didn't commit because he tried to stop his team from doing them. And in the end, he wound up on the short end of things, on the short end of the stick. And because of that, he's like later like joins up with the Resistance, which Kirby instead that forms a resistance along with like some other characters. Well, mostly other characters form a resistance, which is basically like the characters from the video game Freedom Fighters. It was multi-platform Freedom Fighters. I have it for the GameCube, but it also came out on Xbox and PS2. Those characters, they're like supporting good guys like Christopher Stone and Isabella, and I believe it was Troy Stone, his brother, or something like that. There's also other good guys too, like some Animal Crossing characters, just a mix of Animal Crossing characters who are in the Resistance and are helping Kirby. There's a mix of like different colored Kirbys that are helping Kirby, like a Yellow Knight and like I believe it was Orange Knight and Grape Knight and stuff like that. And then too, there's also Tiff and Tuff. Tiff and Tuff, I don't have a figure of them. I wish I did. They're supposed to be kind of wacky good guys. I think they're some of the few good guys that are wacky. It's mostly bad guys that are wacky, but this time some of the good guys are wacky too. It was Tiff and Tuff because they're kind of psychotic and stuff like that. If any of you remember like the character Billy the Kid on Young Guns, the 1980s version of Young Guns, remember the character Billy the Kid? That's pretty much how Tiff and Tuff are portrayed in my story, that they're kind of psychotic like that. The only one who can keep them on a short leash though is Kirby, because he tends to be able to reason with them. And then of course there was also Helena from Dead or Alive, and I really didn't want to put her in it originally, but my sister said, you know what, go ahead and put her in it. And it has a lot to do with her backstory, the way how I finally integrated her in the story. And there's her figure right there. She's by Kirby and stuff. And basically her backstory has a lot to do with it, about how she wants to find her mother's killer, and how King Dedede originally hires her out as a assassin to get Kirby, because she is convinced somehow that Kirby either knows of or maybe even did it himself, which really isn't true. And in the process, she winds up finding out about King Dedede's evil, and joins up with Kirby and stuff, and winds up becoming more like the character in the classical knight story, who's like the damsel in distress and stuff like that. And in the end, Kirby has to like help her out and stuff. And she helps Kirby also too in the process. But that pretty much wraps it up. I hope you'll look forward to the story.